So I was scrolling through Twitter this morning and I saw an interesting post from Nicole Wishoff from Wishoff Ventures that highlights the following. Q2 was nuts, saw 1,500 seed and pre-seed companies, majority inbound, took 157 first calls, and invested in 3 seed stage companies. And this reminded me a little bit of Hustle Fund's numbers, where they're looking at even more deals on a quarterly basis. I think last time I checked, they're looking at over 1,000 companies a month, probably more at this point, and investing in around 5 to 7, maybe give or take a couple companies. And it just reminded me, of the importance of having a stellar pitch deck, not just an okay pitch deck, certainly not a bad pitch deck, but a stellar pitch deck that basically helps you convert that 10% threshold. So if Nicole is looking at 1,500 deals or 1,500 decks and taking that first meeting with 157 of them, that's a 10% conversion rate. And then from there, the conversion rate gets even crazier from the pitch deck to the actual investment. But a lot of these funds are looking at lots and lots of companies. And in order to stand out and get that meeting, that pitch deck needs to be a top 10% pitch deck. In reality, it'd be better if it was a top 1% pitch deck. So it just reminded me of the importance of crafting a very strong narrative and story asset that is going to help you convert from a pitch deck review to I got to meet this company, I got to learn more. And so what we're going to do today is just look at a pitch deck that was submitted to our team that I thought was pretty good. And I'm not sure if it's in 10% category. I'd say maybe it's a top 40% pitch deck, but we're going to talk through a couple ways to make it in that top 10%, jump off the page and hopefully convert a cold inbound DM, whatever you want to call it, into a first meeting with the VC and thus an opportunity, a shot on goal for a potential check. So let's jump in. This company is called Pandora's Way. So I'm going to run through this very quickly and then we'll talk about 3 things that I see that could be improved. So we got Pandora's Way, a tool for becoming. Transitions are where we break or become, and then they talk about adolescence, adulthood, partnership, parenthood, a few life transitions, orienting us to, kind of set the stage. But phones have broken the way we raise children. There's some big stats. 48% of teens say social media harms people their age, and then 1 in 3 U.S. teen girls seriously consider suicide each year. Adolescents need an initiation, not just screen limits. We're building the tool. As exited founders, we've brought bold products to market. Here's the team. It looks like they've all been a part of the startup ecosystem successfully. Platform tackles key gaps in status quo solutions. So, allegedly there are some status quo solutions that still, create some friction for users. Then they have a little walkthrough of what seems to be the user flow. They're leveraging their partner ecosystem and their strong reach to bridge the B2C go-to-market chasm. Okay? They're gaining promising validation signals pre-launch. They got 300 families using it. They've got some great quotes. This feels realer than it did before this slide. There's a pricing model that incorporates a freemium, an initiation fee that looks quite hefty, and then a monthly subscription fee. Makes sense. The TAM for wellness apps is $12.9 billion. The serviceable is $1.2 billion, and then the obtainable market is only $3.75 million. So, interesting market sizing. They have a go-to-market strategy where they're looking to capture key milestones from 1 to 10 to 100 million over time. They've got an ask slide and then a thank you. So, as you can see, the one thing that stands out to me is that I think they did a great job with looking to tell a story. There's an upfront narrative that paints a picture. There's a narrative loop that gets us to a moment where we're talking about how we're solving for this big problem that most people can get behind. And they do a great job with information design. This is very simple. It's not too crowded. It visually looks credible. It looks professional. I can, read the headlines and capture the majority of the point. So for the most part, this already puts them in 50% plus category. Many people come to us with decks that are either too crowded or the design looks very unprofessional or there's no narrative headlines and I have to kind of pull out a microscope to understand the point of the slide. So they did a good job here, and I think there's a lot of good logic. The three things that I think they need to reconsider is, number one, the first time I read this deck, I wasn't sure what the company did. I wasn't sure if this was an actual phone solution. I wasn't sure if this was an app. And it's kind of became clear after I read it the second time, but VCs aren't going to really give you that second time if they're not clear on the most important thing, which is what your solution is. So yeah, I mean, I think like what we'll always do is try to, either tease it more effectively on a title slide. So a tool for becoming, that it means a whole lot of nothing to me. And, it's sometimes useful to talk about a mission on the intro slide, but it should be quite clear what I'm getting into. Is this a consumer app, B2C app solution? Is this a hardware solution? It should be really clear from the title slide, because VCs have, specific mandates. They invest in different types of companies. And they may not read slide 2 if it's a tool for becoming. Maybe even showing some UX so it's clear that this is an app would be very, very useful. And then, after we have this kind of upfront where we have this big problem, they have what I think is a solution kind of transition slide, but it still doesn't really make clear what the solution actually is. It kind of paints a picture of a vision or what adolescents need, and that they're building that tool, but the tool is an app, and the app has quests. Like, there's just so many different things that they could do with this transition slide that would just be really clear. And I assure you, if a VC is looking through the first 4 slides of the deck and is very unclear about what the solution actually is, they will close that deck. Number 2 is a concept that I like to call credibility stacking. So when you look through this pitch deck, we have an upfront narrative, we have a supposed solution transition, then we get into the team, and we see that they're exited founders, they've worked on bold products, they've got some amazing logos down here. This is a credibility check mark. This raises the credibility of this pitch deck. And as does traction in a general sense. And of course, this is really early stage. There's not too much traction, but just, things like customer quotes, pictures of the application itself. Those are things that boost credibility when somebody's reading a pitch deck. And it's very important to instill credibility. People need to get excited about the concept. They need to be able to understand or believe that you're the right team to deliver on it, that this is the right product to capture the market size. So figuring out a way to stack credibility in a more effective way would be useful, because, basically I'm coming in blind on a slide like this into this kind of very vague upfront narrative. I'm still, kind of like, who is this team? What is this product? As I said previously, why is this real? And, so I would suggest that we break the narrative and hit off on it right after the title slide. So we're doing this a lot more recently, where we're kind of establishing hooks, and before we kind of talk about a problem and an opportunity, we just basically say, what's the most credible thing that this pitch deck has going for it, and let's figure out a way to kind of make that like an executive summary or a hook slide, and then we get into the narrative. But right off the bat, we're looking to just kind of generate credibility. And so those are things like hockey stick traction, amazing team slide, the product looks amazing, technology, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. And so thinking through how do we instill credibility early on in the pitch deck is something that I think could take this to the next level and just optimize for that first read through. And the third and final thing that I want to run through is really making sure the audience understands the why in your solution to the problem. So it's a kind of a nuanced topic. I'm going to try to make this really clear. But as I'm going through this, if I now can subscribe that this is a credible team and that this is an app that has quests and in real life communications and there's all these different things as part of the app, I think that sounds cool. There's not traction yet. It's still early. And so what I'm craving to know is why this is the right way to approach the solution to the problem that we're saying here. So if we're saying that phones have broken the way we raise children, the solution to that could be one of many types of solutions. And they actually have a really unique approach where they've built this consumer app that basically lets parents do quests or set up quests for their kids to engage with them in real life. And I think I can kind of intuit why that might be useful. But secret sauce, the quest methodology, is a fresh and unique approach. I've not seen it before. So I do want to understand, like, why, when we're looking at this big hairy problem, did we think that the right, most scalable solution was going to be baked into this, concept of quests and in real life communications via an app? There might be research that backs, the quest methodology to, engaging kids at the right stage. There might be other examples, and they kind of start highlighting these status quo examples, but I'm not actually sure what those are. So maybe there's other solutions out there that are leveraging quests, or they're leveraging, this more in real life, concept, but not with quests. The point is, when you come at the market with an innovative solution, and this can work for B2B and B2C, B2B, why hasn't this been able to be solved before? Why can AI now finally unlock the solution that the market's been craving for years and years and years in a way that, competitors have, kind of missed the point on? Same with B2C. Why is this approach going to be the most effective for kids solving this problem and then scaling, into a venture-backed business? So if they considered those three things, making the solution a lot clearer, stacking credibility in a way that suits their goals, and really addressing the why in their innovative solution, I think that this deck, especially given, kind of the pros that I highlighted earlier in the video, would take this into the, potential top 10% category, and thus help convert with VCs that are looking at lots and lots of pitch decks on a day-to-day basis. So with that, we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Second Opinion. We got some special guests that we're lining up. And until then, best of luck with your pitch decks. Peace.